Right, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to Make Your Own Dad Webcomic. My name is Tab Kimpton. I'm the author of a webcomic called Chaos Comics, which is a finished webcomic. Some of those do exist. This is a guide to getting your own sort of comics online, how to do it, pitfalls that I've found over the years, and just a little bit of advice as we go. Chaos gets about 40,000 hits a day, and I can make a couple grand a year off of it, most of it through merchandise sales. Right, here are some of the comics I do. The current project I'm working on is Discord Comic, which is a more adult sort of queer comic thing, whereas Chaos Comics is sort of a queer romance comic. Right, that's enough about me. Talking about your comics now, really. What I'm going to cover in this guide is writing, actual things to do with making the comic, websites, as in how to actually make a website, put it on up there, getting readers, then how to make money from that kind of thing, and then a little bit about publishing as well. Talking about how to make a comic, you may, or the plot, you may already have this, but some good ideas to keep in mind. Here's an intro. Make it something that other people want to read. This is a common thing which happens with convention skits, actually. Inside jokes. Jokes from inside a series or jokes between your friends. If you get up on the stage and perform this joke, so people in the audience who haven't watched the show that you're from or something like that won't understand what you're joking about. The same goes for plots, really. There are some inside jokes which are hilarious to your friends, but when you actually put them on paper, other people don't understand the context. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other one is, don't just copy work you like sort of straight out. It's quite boring. I mean, there's sort of like interesting sort of realms of going into like fan fiction comics and sort of doing stuff like that, and those can be very popular. Personally, I quite like doing my own stuff because it's more exciting, but you know, each their own. It's more, don't directly copy something, just because you get really bored because you've already seen what it's, what it's doing. A good idea is to read other webcomics. Like, who here reads webcomics? I'm hoping, yeah, cool. I'm glad that you understand what webcomics are and haven't just wandered in for a place to sit down, away from the wasps and the sunlight. But to be honest, I've got this massive light on me right now. I'm so warm. Okay, right, continue. Anyone got some favourite webcomics? Let's go around the room. Like, my favourite webcomic right now is something called Oh Human Star, which is a gay romance comic set sort of in the future where it's got androids and things like that. It's fantastic. Would you like to chip in with some like webcomics you love?
I like PhD comics.
PhD comics? What's it about?
It's about doing a PhD.
Oof.
It's very fun. It's been for a long time.
Yeah, I bet, 'cause PhDs are awful things. In the sense of like the amount of work and stress. My mother did a PhD and all I remember is the pain.
Availability of free food.
Yeah.
Professors.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. It is, yeah, it's fun.
It reminds me slightly of, this is an old one. Does anyone remember Crap I Drew on My Lunch Break? Yeah, that was all done in biro pen. It was a very cute little idea, a real slice of life kind of thing. You there, do you have anything that you wanted to?
Yeah,
Red String, yes. That's actually when I started advertising Chaos first time around. That was the first website I did any advertising on. And if I go over my entire series of advertising, I have like a really low line, and then you have the first advert in Red String, and then it just slowly got a bit more over time. But that was the first big break I ever had. Yeah, fantastic artwork, and the backgrounds are amazing. Anyone else want to come on? If we go across the room, like this set of 4 people here.
I'm going to go with Apparent Actual, which is about kids and ghosts.
Nice,
It's
yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
I think like the webcomic that everyone here probably reads is Oglap, right?
Yeah.
Oglap is like one of the best written comics I can think of.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The author, actually, you can track down her information. She has done another webcomic project, which is very good as well. And that's something I cover a little bit later on, about stuff you need on your website. Contact details, so fans can actually contact you and say, I love your stuff. I mean, I can understand if you write a porn comic, maybe not wanting the people on the internet.
Like the Oglap lady tries to keep it quite hush-hush that she might have certain body parts, because people on the internet think, oh,
maybe a pseudonym, even
Yeah.
just something to be able to sort of, you know. But I believe it is a joint project, though, interestingly enough. Yeah. Anyway, it'd be nice to know, wouldn't it? You know, like an interview or something. Sorry.
It's like Wild West, but with magical artifacts.
Plume, Wild West but with magical artifacts. Nice, nice. I like the sound of that. Did you have one?
Maybe stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
How dare you?
Up the back, did you have anything?
Nothing anywhere near as
You're
obscure
not the
as...
furthest up the back.
Oh,
sorry. Someone else.
There's one called My Cardboard Life by Philippa Rice, and she
My
cuts out little bits of cardboard and puts faces on them and takes photos.
Oh, that's
So
really
it's like
interesting.
photo montage,
Like,
really cute.
you know, fantastic use of media. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry to.
No, that's
cut you
alright. Mine isn't anywhere near as obscure as those. I was just going to say Penny Arcade.
off.
Wait!
Yeah. There we go. It doesn't have to be obscure. We're not like testing our webcomic knowledge here. It's about
I was
anything you
going to
like.
say 8-bit theatre, but everyone's going to yell at me.
Yes. Go for it.
Was there any other character?
Oh, I haven't heard of that one. What's it about?
It's like a horror, supernatural,
Mm.
spooky friends, but she's actually made her own race. And she
Interesting.
wanted to do stuff like their culture, their history, in their language.
That's intense.
I really
Yeah.
enjoyed conversations with her. She's really great. Like if you want to ask a question about such, you can ask her straight away on the number.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah. Go for it. Sorry. Quenchable continent. Yeah. Great. Awful if you're getting into webcomics. You feel like, oh, I better start reading webcomic 1,000 pages later. Oh, I probably need to drink something. Like water, because you've been sitting at the computer. Not that you need alcohol to dull the pain. Maybe you do. Okay, anyone else? Yes? Go for it.
Heavenly Nostrils.
Heavenly Nostrils. What a name. What's it about?
It's about a little girl who finds a unicorn. She rescues it from staring endlessly into its own reflection. And so it allows her one wish, and she wishes for it to be her best friend, which
Oh.
she begrudgingly accepts.
Okay,
There's
it's
just lots of deadpan humour about
sounds
actually
sort of cute, but also horrifying. Because if you imagine like that being a manga series, it would be like cutesy and beautiful, and the idea of the unicorn actually having feelings, and you're like, no, I don't want to be your sidekick. Yeah, sounds like a fantastic idea. Anyone else want to chip in? Yes, go for it.
Least I could do.
Least I could do. I know that name.
It's
But-
like the same guy that does LFG comics.
Oh, fantastic. Anyone else? Yes.
Wrath of Sue.
Could you say that again?
The Wrath of Sue.
The Wrath of Sue. Interesting.
It's
What's it about?
it's the second part of a series about Mary Sue's.
Ooh.
The first one was when the first new Star Trek film came out,
Mm.
and she was in that universe, and she was the cliche Mary Sue.
Yeah, yeah,
And they spent the entire time trying to get rid of her, but of course she wouldn't die.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
But isn't that another trope that the Mary Sue dies and becomes a martyr? Yeah, in fan fiction, like, oh, the Mary Sue's died and it's always so horrible, and let's cry over her beautiful corpse. Has anyone seen the TV Tropes entry on Mary Sue? Yeah, it's just pages after pages because no one can figure out quite how to classify Mary Sue, but we know it exists and we know it when we see it. Anyone else want to chip in with some comics that they love? Yeah?
Dumbing of Age.
What's that, sorry?
Dumbing of Age.
Dumbing of Age, what's it about?
Basically, it's set in a university in Indiana, and it's just general slice of life sort of thing.
I guess you a student yourself?
I used to be.
Yeah, so it's one of those, there's a thing like Monsters University, and people seen that?
Yeah.
Didn't it feel, they've really got an idea for what the language that students actually speak with each other a little bit, sometimes films, they really miss, that they just get it so wrong, and it's like the people who made it have never listened to how sort of teenagers or young people speak at all. Sorry, tangent. Yeah, go for it.
There's another student one which is really old and it's finished. It's called Macall Comics.
How do you spell that?
MAC.
NASC. So
MAC. Mac is in the beginning of the
Oh,
name.
cool.
Macall, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Oh, okay,
It's
excellent.
a slice of life one, but it's kind of people like us
Yeah,
dealing with American
Yeah.
University.
like geeky comics. Yeah. Right, fantastic. Sorry, it's always nice to go around the room and get like a feel for everyone's taste.
I have a really good webcomic that no one should ever read in their entire life. Yowie Seth.
Put it down.
It's the most painful art I've ever seen in my life. There are men that cry like sparkles. There's like glowing columns of light, and it's all in smudged pencil.
Oh. I mean, and does the author know it's funny?
I don't know. I think
That moment, if you don't know if trolling or just dumb.
A little way into it, it just starts to get more and more ridiculous. Like how the first 2 chapters of My Immortal are legitimate fan fiction, but then their account got hacked and they just said, "Sod it, she's going on a date with Satan. Why not? It'll be really funny." But sorry, I'm not.
No, that's fine. That's actually no. I need people to talk back. Otherwise, it's I might as well be empty chairs. Right. Okay. So we know what webcomics we like. A very interesting point when it comes to art is your art gets created by your taste. As in, you look at how other people draw hands and think, "Oh, I really like how they draw hands." Because I think sometimes with art, there is no, especially comic art, there's no way that you can be completely amazing. There's no goal. There is no, if I draw things amazing this way, I will be done. I will be the best artist I can be. How you draw changes over time and depends on what the sort of stuff you like and your tastes accordingly. So, right. The point I was getting at, if you're going to do a gamer comic, it better be a special gamer comic because there's so many gamer comics out there that you really need to stand out. One thing I like to do is when you write a webcomic is have an idea of an ending. You know about this, the webcomics that just fall into the pit and never get sort of touched again. Who here's had a webcomic they absolutely love, just stop updating for like no reason?
Hannah's not poisoning.
Hannah is not poison. Oh, I love that thing, it's so
I never got my signed sketchbook, which I pre-ordered.
Really? I got mine.
Yeah, I got mine.
Fight you for it, yeah.
What Brian Clevenger used to do, the guy who did Avid Theatre, was he had a book, like a sketchbook, like a notebook, and whenever he had an idea, he would write it down, and he had a whole bunch of different scenarios that could play out with any plot. But if anyone on the forum predicted something that could happen, he had to scratch it out. So a lot of things happened that he didn't actually want to happen, but
there's a fine balance thing there about like playing up to fan expectations and not doing it. Because one thing
can we just outlaw? Someone's going to say it at some point, so I'm just going to. Can we not mention Homestuck ever, please?
To be honest, I haven't read it because the idea of an archive that large is just like no, I can't even.
Basically, Andrew Hussey needs to read this and then read the last bullet point about 500 times.
I don't know. It's very easy to just keep going. If you're doing. Yeah, that's what I was going to just bring up actually. Like, no, same wavelength here. Gag comics. You don't really need to come up with an ending. It's more one of the first webcomics I got into, Dominic Deegan.
Yeah.
It just kept going. Why? What's happening? I don't understand. And yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so an ending, a good way of bringing it to a satisfying conclusion. So I don't know about other people when I watch films or anything like that. What I want from a film is I want a good villain, someone that I don't think is just crap and deserves to like die. It's one of the best films, ones where the villain you sort of agree with them. Does anyone like have that vibe? Like, oh, I don't know, and then a good ending, an ending that makes you go, You're like, yes. It can be a predictable ending. The ending's Pacific Rim. Yes. You knew what was going to happen. You were ready. It was the final boss battle. You knew the ending. It was fantastic. But yes, I have so many films that I loved all of it, and then the ending's crap. I'm just like, no. DVD case over the back, and it's the same way it's to me.
On the note of endings, does anyone know what the hell happened to Mega Tokyo?
The guy who was funny left, and then the other one went crazy. I don't know what happened in the plot.
Okay.
So plot things, some stuff to keep into consideration. Right, format. If you plan on getting something into print, it's a good idea to find out what print sizes you can get comics printed into before you start drawing. I'll show you this. Right, okay. That's really compressed down. It's a weird size because of the projector. the Chaos, my first comic, was in a stupid format because it was the size of, I took my sketchbook and drew a ruler's width all the way around the edge, and the middle bit was my comic area, and that's where I drew it, which meant when I came to getting it published, I had to have this awkward like black line all the way around the outside edge, and it just wasn't very pretty. So a good idea to find out what sort of sizes are available for printing in and work within those when you're setting up the files, when you're putting things online. Decide what sort of layout you want to go with. When I first started Chaos, I was doing this sort of like 4 squares style comic thing, but I've discovered that I am a bit more of a free spirit than that, and that I just wanted to take an entire page and just scroll all over it however I wanted to, which means that I've redone Chaos a couple of times and started again because I've looked back on the old comics and go, this is weird. So one thing that will come up again and again is that fans like consistency. Like, you can surprise them a little bit, but when it comes to technical stuff, staying consistent is key, because people hate change. When you're saving files 300 dots per inch or higher, otherwise they'll look rubbish when you're printing. If you can, 600 is best. Any questions on those things? No? Good. Yes?
I've heard a lot of nonsense from the guy who writes Vibe about colours that don't print well, about colours not to use for shading. And I won't say I've had any truth to that at all, because he always has a go at Zach Morrison, who does Karen Apple for using blues.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you have a pink colour and you use sort of like a blue underneath, it kind of looks like when you have your laptop screen at the wrong angle, and it just looks weird. So the other thing is, depending on what kind of colour printing you're getting done, some weird stuff can happen. To be honest, I've done some colour printing for some steampunk stuff, and it comes out a bit beige, and that's fine. So I couldn't give you too much advice on that one, but when I get Shades of A, my next comic printed, I'll let you know how that goes.
Trial and error, I guess.
Yeah,
One of the best things you can do is there are 2 color profiles when you're making something digitally.
Yeah.
One is CMYK. Now CMYK is cyan, magenta, yellow, and then the K is the black. A printer will use a combination of those 4 colors. By default, most image editing programs are set to RGB, which just use 3 colors for displaying on screen. If you set yourself to CMYK to start with, then you're already putting it in a format that the printer's going to understand.
That makes a lot of sense. I've never known the difference, but I've been told off for
point
using
on
the
that one
wrong one.
over here. It's much worse than that.
Your screen represents is not the same as the set of colours that your printer prints.
Oh, this
Yeah,
sounds
it's true.
awesome.
No, it's the same, like when you go to print off a photo that you've seen on the screen, it's different because the photo has light behind it.
You can get calibrators. Yeah, you can get kits that will let you calibrate the whole pipeline. Scan the screen printer because that's what
It will not calibrate if you're doing it professionally in a print job, it won't calibrate that printer.
I mean, I had this with, I just printed Chaos Book 3, and that was just black and white, and some of the comics, between the pages, because I'd adjusted the colour slightly, I had a black woman in like across a 2-page spread, and in one page she looked fine, and this was in black and white, and the next page, she was so dark black, it was sort of, she blended in with the lines around her. Fortunately, I called the printer up and just told them, yeah, correct this page, and this page, and they were fine with it, and it was okay. So yeah, power phone calls.
Also, a lot of printing companies now, depending on what technology they use, they actually have printers now that have more than 4 colours.
Yeah, some, because
so
I
you
know someone
really
has a
need to
printer
check.
that has white in it. It's
Yeah.
like, whoa, that's not how it works. Yeah, any more points on that one? You good to go ahead? Excellent. Right, fonts. Not Comic Sans, for fuck's sake. I know it says comics in it, but not Comic Sans. You're not from the 90s, okay? Well, you might be. I was born in 1990. Is that terrifying to some people? Yes. Sorry.
Why did your webcomic set in the 90s?
What if it's like an actual parody comic, and the
Okay,
idea
yeah,
of that is horrid, then
Yeah.
No, still no.
I'll use Impact and
Impact.
That'll be better.
I recently, I have an embroidery machine. I got my friend, I embroidered her the Tumblr You Tried star, and the You Tried is in like Comic Sans and everything. It's a beautiful piece. Okay. Only use your own lettering if people can actually read it. People are not your friends as well, because the key of a good webcomic is, well, it doesn't matter how good your webcomic is, if people can't read it, they won't. You know, you need to make it easy for them, which sounds awful. That's actually the main approach. You need to make it easy for people to read your stuff, because people are lazy. There is a theory going that every click it takes to get to your comics lose you half the amount of people because they can't be bothered to click that far. That's an example of how lazy the internet is. Sorry, you have a comment there.
Is there a rule about, I think I've heard about handwriting, that if you want it to be the most legible, you need to write all in capitals with spaces and a joined up handwriting?
I would agree on that one, especially because I think styles of cursive handwriting vary depending on what country you're from. And to be honest, being English-speaking people, most of the comics will be fans from the US. Like most of my fans are US and Canada based. So it brings up really funny things with that tangent, sorry. I use the word tar in Shades of Bay. You know, like tar, thanks very much. And I get fans commenting like, what does it mean? Like, it's this cryptic code of the British. Like, can you not like, you know, figure that out? And I have said tar means thank you in some of the comments, and it's like, whoa. I didn't realise there was more than one British accent. So yes, there's some awful ones. So yes, please print your lettering. It doesn't matter so much whether it's in capitals, but just make sure things don't join up. Yeah, that's a very good point. Anyone else? Subject on point and like fonts?
Yeah, blambot.com.
Blambot.com.
Blambot.com. Every
you
font you can want.
The problem is finding ones that are okay for commercial use, technically.
Well, Blambot's policy is if you're indie, as in it's just you, no one else, they don't care. If you're indie but attached to a publisher, even if it's Image, Vertigo, whoever, then Image or Vertigo have to have a license for the font.
No, that is. That's an important thing, copyright, yes. Like that Blambot, there are a lot of free comic fonts on the web. The other thing you can do is make your own font. I've tried this sometimes it doesn't really work at all, sometimes it does. I think we've got some examples here. Okay, that font is literally, you download a font sheet with all of the letters, you fill it in yourself, and you upload it back to the website. There's lots of ones that do this, and it will produce a font like that for you. The problem is you get the spacing in between letters can be a bit wonky, but sometimes it gives you the effect you're going for if you couldn't find anything else which suited you. Any questions on that one? No? Good. Right. Inking. Pencil comics are very difficult to get right, purely by the fact that scanning pencil in is quite difficult, and you need to know the settings of your scanner inside out to be able to do it. The other one is, another theme that we'll have during this panel is don't be lazy, because if you're doing a pencil comic because can't be bothered to ink it, fans will pick up on that. However, there are some pencil comics which are absolutely fantastic, and I wouldn't change how they're done. So do it because you choose to do pencil, because you think your style looks better in pencil, not because it's easier. Inking, it just makes it look clearer. Obviously, lots of different ways to do this. You can work in traditional media, inking by hand, scanning things in. You can work in digital media, working with a tablet. Anyone here use Manga Studio? I think it's fantastic. It takes a long time to unlearn Photoshop. And an unfortunate thing about Manga Studio is it doesn't have an eyedropper tool, which is annoying as hell if you're doing colouring stuff. But you have the advantages of how nice it makes comic lines look is amazing. I really love it.
You have to double click the colour box so it brings up the thing, and then click on the picture and select that colour.
Okay, so for example, Manga Studio does a thing where you can have like 2-bit layers, 8-bit layers, and colour layers. I do coloured comics in Manga Studio, and that is, say you've like done a colour layer, and basically you can just select colours and blob it down onto this layer, right? you can't go back and find out what those colours are anymore. It has no tool to do that.
But
So
I found that when, you know the little boxes in the corner that shows you your primary colour and
yeah.
when you click on that to bring up the colour
Mhm.
selector, if you then click on the picture while the colour selector's up, it will select the colour that you want.
Okay.
I think
Maybe. Like, I'll have a check at home. So I remember like googling a little bit, like why doesn't Manga Studio have an eyedropper tool? And it does in the fancy, expensive version. Mine costs like $50, which is, you might have the fancy version. There we go. Different versions. Okay. Right. I would draw comics with pencil. I would colour them blue in Photoshop, print them out, ink on top of that, scan that in. Nowadays I do things all digitally just because I find it easier. Anyone else? How do they do those sort of things? Got any preferred? Yes?
I would prefer doing it fully digitally because my hand drawing skills are basically XKCD.
I know it.
If it's online, then it's so much, well, on computer screen, it's so much easier to figure out. I'm a mouse and keyboard person as well.
Really interesting. Keyboard comics. Yes?
I think
mouse
this might be
comics.
a bad method, but because I find it easier to draw very small.
Yeah.
So I draw my runs very small, and then I blow them up to A4 and print them, and then I do my proper fine one.
That's good. Whatever works for you.
That's how they storyboard animated films. That's
Yeah.
really intuitive.
Yeah.
It's not a bad method at all.
Alright, whatever works for you, yes.
Excellent.
Purple pencil and dip pen, nice. See, everyone has a way of doing it, and you'll find a comfortable way. The main thing is just trying to make sure that you can get something online which is clear and easy to see what's going on. Right, colour. Here's the question, really, like whether you're going to do it in colour or not. I would say shading is a good idea, though. Even if you're doing a black and white comic, shading is... So there are some comics which are fantastic in black and white and a real delight to see. But imagine sitting in front of a computer reading black and white comics for about 5 hours. It works for sort of like a manga book or a comic, but that level of contrast, the brightness on your eyes, it will just burn after that length of time. That's why I recommend shading. Got a comment there?
The only webcomic that I can read that is all black and white is Demon Kings, but that's with he inks that with a brush,
Okay.
so you can
Interesting.
see his brush lines.
Mm.
So it's quite different.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yes, another comment there?
The other technique is the same as most web browsers. You don't actually use pure white. You use
Yes. Yeah, so dial it down a little bit. Yeah. I would say when it comes to like any kind of colouring, I would prioritise shading something over flat colouring it. This is a personal preference of mine, but I think it's, if you go back through the Control-Alt-Delete archives, you see the moment where he switches to adding shading to something, and it just gets so much better in that single little bit of effort. And to be honest, shading isn't that difficult. You can just sort of like 50% grayscale layer on top, job done. So it's the little thing to have. Colour looks nice, but if it's taking you days to do a single colour comic, you may have to start thinking about other ways to do it. I mean, some of us can do that, I'm proud of the ones that can, but I know I cannot. If my comic allotted time, each page 3 hours, any more than that, and I would probably rethink how I'm doing this page. The other thing to keep in mind, black and white stuff is cheaper to print. So the other thing is, most webcomic readers, if you are getting stuff printed, they probably read your comic because it was free in the first place, so not the height of people with money, let's be honest. One other thing I like to add, stick to a colour scheme so it doesn't look like Christmas. This is mainly like oversaturating things or using really bright blocky colours or not being able to do a colour scheme in the background. One of the awkward things about colours is I've never cared so much about what colour sofas are in my life. Okay, like, oh damn, this is a nice house. So do you think the walls would be magnolia? But that's like too close on sight to my character's skin, so what do I even do? Because, to make a point, the chairs in this room are blue, and the back of the walls are maroon, okay? Maroon. This is the same colours that my school uniform was, and it was ugly then, and it's still ugly. But, as human beings, we can accept this awful colour combination, because at the front of our vision is where the colour vision is, and at the sides you have more grey. which means that as we look around the world, we don't have the impact of colour all of the time, which means that we're okay, we accept, we're okay with like grading around the edges. But when someone reads a comic page, all they've got is that rectangle in front of them, or square, or whatever they're doing. Circles, weird. But it means that it'll be so bright and overpowering. So yeah, I recommend trying to saturate it down. There are lots of really good websites that give you colour schemes. The comic I'm working on, Shades of 8 at the moment, actually has 3 colours. It has an orange, a pink and a blue, but I managed to do it by adding different levels of black and white to each of those colours, and that works and it keeps it not looking really weird, though drawing grass is a bit interesting, without any green.
What do you always end up doing with furniture and walls and stuff, is shading them in grey and then just dragging the hue around until we're happy with it, basically?
It's good. It's a good way of doing it. Right, any other comments on colour and stuff? So I think I've got some examples of different styles of comics there. There we go. So grayscale, that's with a bit of shading in it. It's quick to do, it's easy to read. The thing that you don't get though is people don't know character colours. They don't know the eye colour. One of the main reasons I did Shades of 8 in colour was because I had a Pakistani main character and I wanted people to acknowledge, and know that he was actually a coloured person as opposed to just being a weird grey colour. So yeah, things you can do. But I've got characters in Chaos that have green hair, which you don't really know about because, it's grey. It's different shades of grey. This is my steampunk one, which is sort of a half coloured. It's a bit of a compromise. What I did was all of the shading on each character was in the colour. So say someone's wearing a pink dress, all of the shading would be in pink with like white left, and then just layer of brown over the top, lots of brown. It was actually just scanned in a bit of old paper would go over each comic. And then you have Shades, which is full colour. Any questions on that? We good? Cool. Right, website free hosting. You can host free on these sites, which Drunk Duck, Smack Jeeves, Comic Genesis is what I used to use. Drunk Duck is quite good because they have a community inside Drunk Duck, which means that you can promote your comics across it better. It's simple to set up and good to get you going with. Any questions on those? Yes.
Just say that Manga Magazine.
Manga Magazine,
Yes.
That's quite new, isn't it? Yes.
I found it very useful.
Isn't that the one that is completely advert free, but asks for donations? As in,
They
like,
ask, I don't think they.
yeah, no, it's one of those, but other people do, so it's fine.
Yeah.
And they just run on a donation basis, like kind of how Wikipedia
I
does.
found it much easier to use than Dropbox, though Dropbox is very nice and simple.
Yeah. So what was that? Manga
Manga Magazine.
Magazine. So there we go, there's another one for you. Bought hosting. Register your domain. Pick something which is easy to spell. I have gotten so tired of spelling my comic name over the years, like you wouldn't believe. Make it simple. Because mine is Chaos Comics, spelled Khaoskommix. How many times have I reeled that off in my life? Right, so I made a mistake. Do as I say, not as I do. Cool, guys? Right. Pick a host that guarantees like a good uptime and 24-hour tech support. Hosts I've used in the past, sometimes my forum will just go completely down and I'll send them an email and a day later they'll be like, oh, send us your login details, maybe. So look for one that's got good tech support. I'm on HostGator, which hasn't screwed me over yet. I got screwed over by my last host because they didn't have a cap on bandwidth, but they had a cap on CPU usage, which when I was getting to the end of Chaos, the amount of visitors I was getting, I was taking up over a quarter of their servers. Whoops, so like uptake days, my site would just crash. And what they did in the end was they put a limiter on me, so people just couldn't load the website, and I was stuck in a contract with them for another year. In the end, I just bought another set of web hosting and told them, yeah, whatever, you can take my money. Another one I'd recommend, HostGator lets you do hosting per month, which means if I ever fall out with HostGator, I can just leave whenever I want and not lose as much. Some things to keep in mind. Right, building a site. Use nice colours and not stuff that makes people's eyes bleed, okay? Something that complements the comic but not not too much. It's a good idea to look up words. Dyslexia and what colours make it really hard for people with dyslexia or any other similar things difficult to read. And make sure that your site kind of fits inside those. Same with any fonts you use. Once again, we're going back to the point of make it easy for people to read and look at your stuff, because otherwise they won't. Make it easy to navigate around the comics. Don't be like, well, it's about like runes and circles, so what they have to do is they have to solve this puzzle to go on to the next page, and click onto it. No, just don't. I know it's like within the theme, it's quite cool in some ways. Just make it so they can click like a monkey. It's fun. Do that. Make the comic the focus of the page. It's about the comic. That should be the main thing. Yes.
My biggest pet peeve about reading a webcomic on the internet is if I can't click the comic page to go to the next one, if I have to go and find a little button.
Yes.
If it's a big button, a big nice one that stays in the same place as you scroll, that's great. But if I have to go up and down the page, I get frustrated.
I tend to do navigation on top and bottom, because I know sometimes people are like, whereabouts am I? And so they can just hammer clicking until they get to the page they want to get to, or they can scroll down as they go. Yeah, that's great. Once you know, you can just you can just lie back in your chair and read, can't you? It's
And
good.
you just lie there going through pages and pages of adverts. And it doesn't even matter, it doesn't even sink in.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Make it easy to update as needed. For example, I know some people have tried to make like webcomic pages in Flash or something like that. Why would you even? Do you know how hard it is to sort of add things to that? For example, one of my first sites was written by me for a fan, which I was very thankful for, but they also used Python to write it, which I don't know how to use. And one thing about Python is if you get a single thing wrong, site crashes, can't do anything, I have to go back, find out how to fix it. So, make it easy to update. And the other one is learn a little bit of HTML for little things like I want to add a link to this, I want to do that, just to make it so you can do little changes yourself. You can use a platform. Says WordPress with a Comic Press plugin is one that I use, and I think that's pretty good because you can just install other things on top of it. Does anyone know of any other webcomic platforms? No? Cool. Comic Press it is. That is literally just install it into your site and you follow instructions and you can start uploading comics. I'm down with that. Or you can cheat and pay someone to do it like I've done in the past.
I made a
Yes?
horrible mistake. I asked someone who I thought was my friend to help me, and he said, "Here, use this website to get your hosting and your domain name," and he told me to use hearingfreespeech.net, which is not user friendly at all. And then he said, "I'll make the site for you," and then he fucked off.
Yeah. Sometimes happens, yeah.
You need to install something. I need to figure out how to use a MySchool, whatever that is.
MySQL, yes.
It's a database.
To be honest, this is a little bit over my head, so you know. Right, there we go. Things you need on your website. You need a warning page if you have adult content, just as a this is not safe for work. This is one I had on Chaos all the time, always on Chaos. And I remember getting emails from people like, "Oh man, you should have given a content warning for that page you just did." And this entire page is like going to get you fired, unless you have a really cool place to work at. So yeah, it's polite. That's just in the same realm that putting trigger warnings on things are polite. Main comic pages, important. Comics, most important bit. An archive that's easy to navigate and keeps updated. Not just page 1, page 2. More coming soon, okay? Then a contact and about the author page, like we were talking about Oglaf earlier. It'd be nice to send them some fan mail, like, I really like that thing you draw. It's really good. Because the other thing is, if you're writing a comic, nothing really is a great hide than finding out that some people read it and some people like it. Nice extras for your website. A link section to other sites you like and just similar things. And banners to link back to you, because sometimes people will link back to you, and it's good to then have a quick resource there. a store to sell your stuff. As we go on to the selling bit, I'll talk about this a bit more later. Character and story information, all of that stuff that you figured out about the characters but decided it would jam up the story too much to include it. So put it in there, like little bits of tidbits of information, and so people can remember your characters' names, because you know your characters' names, we hope, whereas other people don't so much, and what seems really obvious and easy to remember name for you isn't for other people. Fan art section, because you're getting the fans re-involved with your work. Extra art section for sketches and fillers. This is, for example, say you're in a really intense part of the plot line, and you know a character's just died, or we don't know if they're dead yet, or something like that, and you come along and you click along, and then suddenly, oh sorry, no comic updates, here is a happy picture of one of the characters while I'm, you know, away off sick or doing university stuff, and it just jars you out of this thing you've been reading. So it's a good idea to take those sketches, like if you have to do fillers or anything like that, put it in a separate archive where people can look at it if they choose to, and it's outside the main narrative. Forums are excellent because arguments on forums, they give you so many hits to your websites, like you wouldn't believe. You'd be like, oh shit, I should be like administrating this and making sure this. Be like, oh well, they're not doing death threats, so I'll leave it for a little while. It's making people visit the site more. And if someone on the internet is wrong, I need to make sure that they're not wrong. Other things you can sometimes do is a paid members section, which is what some websites use to make money from. This is one that I don't have experience with. Anyone here run a paid member section for a webcomic at all? No? Cool. Right, we'll just continue on. Right, getting readers. The most important thing you'll ever have about getting readers is make an update schedule and keep to it. It doesn't matter when this update schedule is. It doesn't matter how little you do it, just as long as it is regular and they know when they can come back. Because it's one of those things that you know, oh, this comic update's over the weekend, this comic update's on Monday, so you know you can come back and there'll probably be a page. But those comics where it is feel like, oh, I tend to update like a couple of pages a month, and say they haven't done it for a month, and webcomics get abandoned so often that people are just like, oh, clearly this one's been abandoned, and they never look at it again. So yeah, updating regularly, important. One thing I do to make sure that I update regularly is live stream. Is anyone familiar with this? It's basically I record myself drawing and my face for the internet. It means that every Monday and Thursday I get up and I'm by my computer at 9 AM and I draw a comic for 2 to 3 hours and that comic is done. And it's like going to real work. But it means that I don't have those times when I was trying to write tricky parts of my archive and I just look at the script and look at the blank page and look back at the script and just go, no, it's too hard, and just sort of wander away again, or go back on Tumblr and scroll some more. So it's a good way to stop you from procrastinating. Right, some stuff about advertising. How much time do we have left? 10 minutes, okay. I'm not going to talk to you about the 3 tiers of advertising then. That's, let's say, avoid that one. Don't bother advertising until you actually have some comics to advertise for. It's so annoying. Like, oh, this comic project sounds fun. Oh, look, this looks interesting. Over I go. Single page. Great. What's the point? Like, wait until you have a nice little bump of comics so people come and decide, yeah, I like this. I'll come back for more. Get a stat counter on your site so you know how many hits you're getting, because watching hit counters go up, it's addictive, it's seriously addictive. Focus mainly on the comic and not on the advertising, because a good comic will get readers no matter how shoddily it's advertised, because word of mouth is a thing, and a great thing. Free advertising you can use. Get yourself on Top Webcomics. Top Webcomics is a site where people vote for their favourite comics. Normally with voting incentives, and basically over a course of a month they get put in order of who gets the most votes. It's a good goal to get yourself to actually, but besides finishing the webcomic, actually writing the damn thing, the idea of getting on the top 100 on Top Webcomics, that's a great goal, and you can slowly move up the ranks, which would be exciting. The other thing you can do is put a link on a forum signature. For example, I do a lot of other stuff around the internet. Sometimes it's nice for, say, you write interesting posts, people can click on your stuff and see what else you do. Say you write one that makes them very angry, they can also click on it and go and send you a or something. One thing you can do is email similar comic artists with a link to your comic. However, it's a bit tricky with the whole, please like link back to my comic, a bit awkward. I would recommend the best way to do it is be like, hey, I really like your stuff, I've linked to your comic, here's a link to mine, feel free to have a read, I hope you like it. If it's your kind of thing, I would really appreciate a link on your website. Nothing too pushy, because being polite in emails is an important thing to do as a creator. Another thing you can do is start a forum to keep fans involved with your work. Like I was saying earlier, Internet Argument is fantastic. My forum became a bit, not so much anymore since Chaos is finished, but became a bit of a hub for people talking about queer and sexuality issues, which means that the community feeling of Chaos was fantastic. And that was something that kept my fans very loyal over the years. Let's comment now.
But on the previous point, if you have a webcomic and somebody emails you saying, hey, I linked to your, would you have a read of mine? And there's this quite terrible saying, you just not replying.
To be honest, that is in the realm of probably not replying. I know that sounds awful, but sometimes, you know, the whole like, you can't say anything nice, don't say it at all thing. That is my response on fan mail actually, as well. Like, yeah, not like horrific fan mail or hate mail, I tend to just not reply. I mean, I do read it all and then sort of decide whether or not anything I say will actually help the other person, if that makes any sense. Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one. I do actually, I have a couple of trickily worded questions. I have a sheet of something which I would call awkward emails, and I have sort of generic replies that I've just carefully tailored over the years for whenever I get really awkward emails. And it means that I don't sit down for half an hour figuring out how to type to this person. My normal one for that would be like, oh, thank you very much, I will have a look at it. However, I tend to only link to personal favourites of mine and just leave it at that, if that makes any sense. Any other questions on that one, talking about like public relations? Okay, we're good. Moving on. Paid advertising. Find a site which is similar to yours and advertise on it. For example, if you write a game comic and there's a really soft, fluffy, romantic comic that has nothing to do with games, it's probably not the best place to advertise the comic on. And like we were talking about Redstream earlier, Redstream was where I put some advertising on, and that gave me a massive bump in increase of people visiting my site. Project Wonderful is a tool many people use. I don't think anyone actually wins with Project Wonderful except Project Wonderful. The advertising is very expensive. It's kind of like eBay bidding on advertising. And the other thing I'll say is don't spend too much money on advertising. It's sort of worth it, but once you get beyond a certain level of money, it's just like throwing more bad money after bad money. Right, making money. To be honest, it doesn't really happen so much in the webcomic world. However, a lot of people use webcomics as portfolio works. For example, most of the big publishing companies, especially talking sort of Marvel and DC, won't accept comics submissions of portfolios from people who don't have previous experience with writing comics. So it's a good way of filling up your portfolio. Yes?
The guy who wrote 8-Bit Theatre works for Marvel. He has written X-Men, he's written Doctor Who, and if he hadn't sat down when he was 50 and said, I work on Final Fantasy comic, it wouldn't have happened. They are great portfolios, even if you don't like them by the time you're 50.
Exactly. The other thing it shows to people is that you're dedicated enough to keep doing something even when you don't get money from it. I will probably never get the money back that I've spent my life on Chaos, but that's okay. Well, to make money, you need fans willing to give you that money, so covering that now. Ways to make money without doing anything, really. Put PayPal donation on the button on your website. However, if you have an adult website, you cannot put a PayPal donation button on your website because it's against their terms of service, and basically means you probably won't get caught, but if you do get caught, PayPal PayPal will take all of your money and never give it back to you. Something to keep in mind. Put advertising on your site, not too much. Again, the comic is the focus. The other thing you can do is offer comic commissions of your fans to people. Have like a basic, like a character costs this much, adding colour costs this much, something like that. Something quite easy. However, there are ways that you can make merchandise, which involves a bit more effort because you have to put more effort in, and you sometimes have to put money in. A good idea, and the great thing about webcomics, is you can check with your fans first to see what you want. So for example, if I have a t-shirt idea, I can put it up and have people vote on it and decide which idea that they want the most. And it's a fantastic thing called market research, which is useful and not just a rubbish thing you had to do in GCSE Tech. You can put designs up in places like Cafe Press and they will do printing for you. However, Cafe Press and on-demand printing, especially for t-shirts, tends to be a bit rubbish. I would recommend, if you can, get everything screen printed. If you're designing a t-shirt for screen printing, the key thing to remember is every colour you put on a t-shirt costs you money, so designs should be designed specifically for t-shirts and not just drawing you had just walloped onto something. You can put t-shirts up for pre-order to cover printing costs. I did this with a t-shirt run recently and it was fantastic because I found out what sort of sizes I needed to get. People could put in special orders for t-shirt colours. I got a big hunk of money which I could send to the t-shirt printers and they got a t-shirt they wanted. It was great. One thing I would also say, funny shirts sell more than pretty shirts, which is a horrible little fact of life, but yeah. I tend to sell funny shirts at conventions because I know random people can walk along and go, hey, that's a funny shirt. Oh, it's from a webcomic I write, but that doesn't matter. You can still buy a funny shirt in simple as. There are some shirts that I do, and some badges and posters and things, just to give you some ideas of some of the stuff that you can make, which has your stuff on it. Publishing, in the last couple of minutes, we're almost done. Look around for publishing places that do stuff that is similar to yours. And before you start editing anything into book form, because you never know what submission guidelines will be like. You can do print-on-demand sites like Lulu, though Lulu tends to be quite low quality, and they don't give you much money, really. You can self-publish through a printer. Ones I've used are inkylittlefingers.co.uk, which are good for small comic printing, the sort that's folded over and stapled, and like little leaflet printing and that kind of thing. For perfect bound books, I've recently had a very good experience with Book Printing UK from my Chaos books, and they were surprisingly cheap, actually. You can also look around for publishers who accept work like yours. Webcomics are a really awkward thing because a lot of publishers won't want to put their hands on anything that already exists on the internet. Personally, I've always wanted to keep my comics online and free, so I was wanting to do that. And I did find a publisher that was willing to do that with me. And that was great. And they do exist, they're just a bit more tricky to find. The only thing, the good thing about going to a publisher is you can say, here is a comic which already has fans, so you should come and print it because I know you can get this many sales definitely on it. There we go, we've reached the end. Do we have any questions? Oh, good. Basically out of time. My email address and website is there. And here are some links to some of the places that I've recommended for websites, merchandise, advertising, and everything like that. Okay, thank you very much for listening, and go forth and make, guys. I hope you have a